Anatomy is an indie horror game by Kitty Horror Show. This game is one of the few pieces of horror that I know of that connect horror to our daily lives. When it comes to other things of horror, it may be fantasy or sci-fi with an overpowering monster, or the hypothetical mechanical ruler, but once you finish watching, reading, or playing said piece, you're back in the real world. Yes, there are good horror pieces that do touch on our daily lives, like Perfect Blue or Silence of the Lambs, but they put the power of fear on events and people that are too rare for an average person to encounter. Anatomy brings the horror to you. You start off paranoid in this dark and suspicious house, cautiously but curiously exploring. You then find a cassette tape and player and play it, unknowing to the revelation it'll bring.
In the psychology of the modern civilized human being, it is difficult to overstate the significance of the house. Since as early as the Neolithic era, humankind has defined itself by its buildings. Buildings for worship, buildings for socializing, buildings for protection, even buildings for the commemoration of the dead. But of all the structures that mankind has invented for itself, there is little doubt that the house is that which it relies upon most completely for its continued survival.
You're reminded of the importance of the house, and are mentally locked in by just one single word: survival.
The house is one of the key elements that separates modern humanity from its more primitive antecedents. No other creature goes to such lengths to create lasting, permanent shelter for itself, nor regards such shelters with such reverence and importance. Why do human beings of our modern age foster this tremendous sympathy toward their homes? There are many reasons, of course, but perhaps it is due in some small part to seeing them as a reflection of ourselves.
You question what you meant by reflection of ourselves. That statement is creepily understandable, and you now willingly delve deeper from the curse of curiosity.
The anatomy of the house is such that this analogy is less superficial than at first it may seem. To carry it further, if we were to dissect a house as we might a human cadaver, we would find ourselves able to isolate and describe its various appendages and their functions in a decidedly anatomical fashion. There is even a fair number of direct comparisons to be drawn between those organs of a house and those of a human body.
As he elaborates on the idea and infers the rooms as organs, you feel slightly unnerved as you dwell on the thought.
For example, let us examine the living room. Often the dominant space of a house's ground level, as well as typically the center of activity in a well-populated home, the living room is very much the heart of the house. While a human heart circulates blood to oxygenate the body's extremities, the living room circulates people, activity, communication. It is the room most likely to be found beating, as active and vivacious as its name would imply. The comparison is only strengthened when we consider also that the living room is most commonly the room to contain the fireplace, making it additionally a locus of actual physical heat.
The dissection of the living room convinces you further to mentally construct the house as a being same as you, charmed by his personifying words.
It is easy to think of the kitchen and dining room as the stomach or digestive system of a house, though this comparison is tenuous. By contrast, the function and analog of a bathroom should be immediately obvious. The hallways and corridors of a house are its veins, providing circulation coursing throughout its frame. A staircase bears more than a passing resemblance, both physically and symbolically, to a spine. The windows of a house serve much the same purpose as eyes, and anyone who has ever rounded a bend or long drive and come suddenly face to face with a tall, dark manor will tell you that it is difficult to shake the impression that the house, through its lightless windows, is a creature capable of vision and intelligence.
As he crafts this living house more and more, you feel an unsettling tingle through the corresponding body part as you explore the house.
The bedroom is perhaps the room that most eludes direct comparison in this fashion. At a stretch, and allowing for a bit of poetic sympathy, it might be said that the bedroom is not unlike the human mind, or those parts of it which dictate thought and imagination. In the bedroom, dreams are dreamt, passions are ignited, epiphanies are experienced in cold sweat at early hours. In the bedroom is where people invariably spend the majority of their time, though comparatively little of it whilst conscious.
Now, your thoughts are led into your room. As many who are playing reside within at that moment. You feel a deeper connection with your room, as it being a physical extension of your personality, but as residing within any other living creature would be like. Any such pleasant feelings would be unwelcomed.
And yet this analogy is an incomplete one, for obviously the mind is an exceedingly complex thing. If the bedroom represents the thinking, dreaming part of the brain, then it is the basement that represents those lower, unconscious parts. The basement is dark. It is buried. It is a place full of cobwebs where memories are stored. A poignant comparison, truly. Often the unnerving uncertainty that comes with considering the deeper aspects of the human psyche is not unlike gazing down at the swimming blackness pooled at the bottom of a basement stairwell. It is a place we spend our childhoods filling with monsters that will lay for years in patient silence. It is a place that, barring some specific errand, we seldom ever want to go.
Recalling the basement, which also includes dark areas for those without, it resurfaces a childlike fear and floods your mind that is reluctant to, but unconsciously, resprout.
Of course, this comparison, though appropriate, is a very heavy-handed one, and often the basement is little more than a storage space littered with the corpses of spiders and woodlice. While poets and psychoanalysts no doubt dread the thought of a dark basement, in truth, it is the bedroom, the waking mind, that place of dreams, which is actually the most frightening of all.
At some point to now, the player would have drifted the connection to the lectures from the house they're playing in to their very own. With the final room within reach, you're hesitant to unveil what makes the room the most frightening of all, but oddly, also eager. You fear to know the secrets of your house, but at the same time, can't stand the knowing itch you have in the back of your mind, willing to fear the very thing that keeps you safe.
It is here, in the bedroom, that we are at our most vulnerable. Each night we shut our senses to the world for hours at a time, trusting in the house to keep us safe until next we wake. In this state of extreme vulnerability, we will spend something like 20% of our lives. Anything might stand beside us, watch us, keep us company until dawn, and we would never perceive it. We can only pray that the house will not let such things carry on as we sleep. In this way, during these hours, the bedroom seems less like a mind and more like a mouth. For it is here that the house is most likely to betray us. It is here that we place ourselves most at the house's mercy and spend each night hoping that it will not bite down.
Now, leaving you to nothing but the silence of your desktop and the silence of your house, with nothing to fill that void but your own imagination and thoughts, too scared to expand on these ideas planted within your mind further than your shattered illusionary security. You sit there, paralyzed with nowhere to escape to, and are given no choice but to give in to the clutches of your home.